Hello, what's going on, everyone? My name's Colin, semicolon, whatever you want to call me, I don't care. And welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be going through my current TSM profiles and just kind of explaining how they work uh, in case you're wanting to use my TSM profiles for your gold making. So kind of a quick disclaimer before we get started. If you are interested in using my TSM profiles and are curious as to where they are in my Discord. So there's a link to my Discord in the description below. And in Discord, there is a channel that has my TSM profiles. Yeah, again, if you're wanting to use them, please feel free to go to my Discord and snag those. So I have three TSM profiles currently posted in Discord. Um, and essentially, what they are is there's one which is just all crafted. So it covers this entire menu down to uh, profession equipment here. The other one that I have is going to be strictly just Inscription, which is going to be from Inscription down to Ruined Wraithbark. And then the third one I have is Jewelcrafting, which is just Jewelcrafting down to Soul Cages. So if you want the entire thing, you can just grab the entire TSM base group, and it'll include the Inscription and Jewelcrafting groups in them. And the reason that I kind of broke it up that way is Inscription and Jewelcrafting groups are the main two groups that I use on a daily basis. I do use like the engineering group just a little bit. I use the alchemy group a little bit. I don't really touch blacksmithing currently. I don't really touch leatherworking currently. And then I use mounts and the pets and toys and tailoring a little bit more regularly. But again, the jewel crafting and inscription are the two main ones I use. So that's kind of why I separated those out, and just in case you're not wanting the whole shebang. But I guess my final disclaimer with that would be that if you are wanting a different one of these groups, like let's say you are wanting my mounts group or my pets and toys group, but not wanting the whole other deal, please let me know. You can let me know in the comments, or you can post a message in Discord. Um, Letting me know which profiles or TSM groups you would like to see, and I will absolutely get those added to the list within the Discord channel for TSM profiles. Happy to share whatever, so please just let me know what you're looking for. Okay, so to get started, I'm just gonna kind of talk about the entire TSM group and the specific groups I use within my entire TSM group. So with alchemy, it's exclusively primal convergence, and essentially all I'm using this group for is any primal convergence that so like rank 3 primal convergence, I do not craft into elemental harmonies. So this is automatically just going to post any rank 3 primal convergent I receive. And then rank 2 primal convergence are also included in here, because I will use all of my rank 2 primal convergence to craft elemental harmonies. But if I have like a handful of primal convergence left over after I've done my crafting through resourcefulness procs and that kind of thing, then this group will just kind of clean them up and get those primal convergence posted on the auction house once I'm done crafting, essentially. If I were to run this operation to post before crafting the elemental harmonies, it would post all of the primal convergence of the rank 2 quality. So just bear that in mind, and that's kind of going to be the case with a lot of these groups. It's kind of assuming that you've already done your initial crafting, because if you again run your TSM posting operation with all these raw mats in your bags, even if you have the intention to craft with them, these groups might just post those items. So again, make sure you do your crafting before you do that post scan. So next up is going to be the engineering. I'll actually just highlight real quick because I skipped over blacksmithing. So there are some things within blacksmithing. So there's crafted gear, crafted weapons, profession equipment. Most of the crafting professions, you're going to see some groups structured and built for gear and crafted weapons and profession equipment. I don't really use these groups very much anymore. But with that being said, if you do that type of crafting, these groups should work for you. Um, so yeah, you're certainly welcome to use them. The only reason I don't use them currently is just because a lot of the crafted gear and profession equipment is just not worth really anything on Area 52 now. And so that's just kind of why I don't bother with them. But you certainly could, and you could create another group within all of these if you were doing like current PvP gear. You absolutely would have that option and could get that created. Kind of gonna skip over blacksmithing. I do have one group set up for shovels. If shovels is something that you craft and sell, it is not currently something I craft and sell. There is going to be this one listed in here for bracer shuffle. This essentially was just a group that I had set up so I could mail the bracers from my tailor to my enchanter to disenchant. So there's not going to be really any auctioning operation specifically around the bracer shuffle. So looking at engineering, as I mentioned with blacksmithing, there is the engineering gear and crafted weapons. Not going to look at those along with the profession equipment, but there is the engineering parts section. So this does not have all qualities of the engineering parts added to it. So some of these, depending on kind of where you're at within your professions, you might have to add some of the items to these groups. And if you're curious about how you would add an item to a group, or know if an item is grouped or not, when you're looking in TSM here, on this column in the left, you can see ungrouped items in bags, and then this is obviously all the grouped items. So if you have an engineering part that you're wanting to get into this group, you would just select it, click add one item, and it'll be put onto this side. So you might have to do that for not only engineering, but if you have like lower quality jewel crafting gems, inks, anything like that, you might have to go through and add them to their respective groups. But the engineering parts is just going to sell all of these different engineering parts. Pretty straightforward. And I'll get into kind of the operation side and stacks that they do here in just a little bit. And then there's obviously the zap throttle. I made a separate group just specifically for the zap throttle because um, if I put the Zap Throttle Soul Inhaler into this engineering parts, then obviously the Zap Throttle Soul Inhaler would follow the posting operation that all of these items are in. But these are a stackable item. I don't want to post the same amount of Zap Throttles as I am with all of these items, so that's why I have a separate group set up for it. Then looking at Inscription, so there's chilled runes. Chilled runes is a great thing to craft. I've just created a separate group, and for some of these items, like you'll see, like chilled runes and writhe bark, they're in separate groups, and you might see, especially when we go through the operations side of things, that like chilled runes and runed writhe bark are in the same auctioning operation. And so you might be like, well, then why didn't you just put them in the same group? So the reason that I don't put them in the same group is because there are times where I don't want to sell my chilled runes, but I do want to sell my runed wrythbark. And if I had them in the same group, then the only way that I could accomplish not selling chilled runes and selling only runed wrythbark would be is when I'm going through posting all of my auctions, making sure once I get to the chilled runes, I'm clicking skip as opposed to post. So it just makes it easier for me and reduces the chances of me accidentally posting chilled runes when I didn't intend to. And I think maybe a little bit more context to why I have them separated is also chilled runes is a crafting material for runed writhe bark. So a lot of the times when I'm not wanting to post chilled runes, but I am runed writhe bark, it's because I'm probably crafting my chilled runes into runed writhe bark. So it just makes that process easier. There is the crafted gear and weapons section. Not going to pay any attention to that, along with profession equipment within Inscription. But then we get to inks. So the inks category is going to have all the inks and the respective pigments. So obviously blazing is just going to be the blazing ink, and then right beneath that the subgroup is the blazing pigment, and that's going to have all the pigments. Now again, to clarify, I don't have all ranks all qualities of the materials in these groups, so you might need to go through and add them. Something like blazing pigment is not something that I like. I almost never sell blazing pigment on the auction house. So I've more so just kind of created a subgroup for it just for organization's sake. But this isn't something that I'm posting on the auction house very regularly. And then burnished, I intentionally set burnished ink to be separate. Because it's kind of the same story with chilled runes and runed wraithbark. The story is very similar with all inks. So a lot of times, like, I want to sell burnished ink, but I don't want to sell any of the other inks because I'm turning the other inks into burnished. And so I have them all separated just in case I do come across, or sorry, I do have them all separated so that I don't have to worry about, again, going through my posting operations and having to skip over the blazing, flourishing, and serene ink. But I also created them their own auctioning operations just in case, because, like, especially recently, flourishing ink's kind of been, a super high price point with Wraithbark being as high as it has. So there might be times where I decide that, like, oh, I will post my flourishing, and so I'll select that specifically in my posting scan, or and then obviously the same principle can translate to serene and blazing ink as well. Um, and then I have the pigments separated out for each of these if pigments is something that you sell, just to make organization a bit easier. And then lastly, I have shimmering pigment. Again, you will, if pigments is something that you sell, you will have to go through and add the pigments to your crafting operations, because I don't have all of the pigments added. I am working on getting these pigments added. I did kind of recently do a complete overhaul on my TSM groups. So as I kind of continue to fill these out, I will probably just replace the links in Discord with the updated TSM groups. But yeah, you get the idea. Moving on. So next we've got missives and contracts. So obviously we've got them separated out by missives and contracts down on the bottom, or in subgroups, just in case we ever wanted to post one and not the other. And you could make further subgroups if you wanted to. Like, you could possibly make contract subgroups specifically for the ones that use Zeralek glow spores, because those are kind of typically a pricey thing. So if you wanted to make sure that the Loam Niffin and Emerald Dream contracts don't sell below a certain point, you could make a subgroup under there, and put the Loam Niffin and Dream Wardens contracts into that subgroup to set a floor, or a bottom price essentially. But I don't think that that's super necessary, at least for what I'm doing. So that's why I haven't created a subgroup. So that kind of covers all of the inscription. Next, we'll look at Jewelcrafting. Pretty much the main thing from Jewelcrafting, there's three main things. One is going to be elemental harmonies. So I exclusively, anytime I'm crafting elemental harmony, I always make sure it's rank 3. I don't ever craft rank 2 or rank 1 elemental harmonies, so that's why they're not in this group. You could, like, if you, because like elemental harmony auctioning operation is the exact same as runed wraithbark and chilled runes. So if you didn't care, if you wanted to have your TSM groups a little bit more condensed and not have as many, you could stick this into like a group with runed wraithbark, chilled runes. Because for me, again, I post them all in stacks of 50. But I like to have the organization and just make sure I can customize my auctioning operation. So that's why I have elemental harmony on its own. And then for gems, so we have the overall gems section, and then we have the base gems section. So for gems, this is all the cut gems that I do. I don't claim that there is every single cut gem that I do. To clarify, actually, like I said, I have been kind of redoing these groups, and so I've been trying to add the cut gems when they are profitable and I actually craft them. So, like, you won't see a lot of the cut Nozdorites, but that's just because I don't really sell them, and you might not see every type of cut gem. But this main gems tab is going to be the cut gems, and then right below it, base is just going to be the base gems, and then I just tossed fractured glass in there as well. So I have like this base gem group put together because when I go through and craft elemental harmonies, it's inevitable that I'm going to have some leftover base gems of each different variety in my bags. And so I just want to get those out of my bags as quickly as possible. And so after I've crafted all my elemental harmonies and go to my first auctioning operation, this just gets rid of all of the base gems from my bags. So frees up some space. And then lastly, soul cages. Soul cages is something new I've been dabbling in. I haven't done it a whole lot. It's not always profitable, but it has been nice doing my soul cage crafting for all of the different souls that I'm farming. So I've been crafting a lot of the soul cages instead of buying them. So with this group, I haven't actually done it yet, but I could create a mailing operation to just automatically distribute these soul cages between the characters that I'm doing souls on. So you could do that, but then also I do post the soul cages when they're profitable. So just another option for that. As I mentioned, I don't really do anything with leatherworking, but the groups are kind of set up if you want to. It's probably not going to have like season 3 PvP gear, so you'd have to add that if that's what you're wanting to do. But the group's kind of there for you to get started on. So next up, I have this mount section, and I did put in parentheses must customize. So mounts, at least the current mounts that I'm doing are unique in the sense that Mechano Hogs, the Jewelcrafting Panthers, and the depleted Kyparium Rocket, they all have a kind of a base cost. So there is a crafting material in each of these items that, basically you cannot go below. Like you couldn't craft this item for cheaper, but it's different for all of them. So for Panthers, like it's impossible to get below like a 21,500 gold. I'm just kind of pulling that number out of my ass. Don't quote me on that, but 21,500 gold crafting cost. And so I made a specific auctioning operation for Panthers so that I would never have to worry about posting a Panther that's going to ultimately sell for less than what I crafted it for. And obviously, since Panthers, the Kyparian Rocket, and Mechano Hogs all have kind of like a different base cost, I had to set up 3 different customized groups for those. So that's why I said must customize, because if you are selling other mounts, you might need to go through and set up a specific TSM auctioning operation for that mount and whatever that minimum price point is that you're wanting for that mount. If they're non-crafted mounts, like if they're just mounts that you gathered out in the world or collected out in the world, you probably could create just a 4th base group that just has all of the world mounts that you could just kind of toss in all into one group for ease of auctioning, so that you didn't have to create separate auction operations for each of them. But I think you get the idea. Whatever you think works for you is the way to go. And then pets and toys, pretty self-explanatory. With these, I don't have any sort of minimum price points. So we will take a look at those auctioning operations, but it's again, pretty self-explanatory. And then lastly, tailoring. So tailoring, I have this cloth section. It's similar to the gems base group, where it's just if I get this shit in my bags, I'm just gonna get rid of it by doing my post scan. And then crafted gear tailoring, same story. Don't do that currently. For Dragonflight bags, I do have the Azure Weave Expedition Pack, Chronocloth Reagent Bag, and Wilder Cloth Bag. I have kind of not been doing the Simply Stitched Reagent Bag, and I really don't ever do the Wilder Cloth Bag, at least on Area 52. The Simply Stitched Reagent Bag and the Wilder Cloth Bag are dirt cheap almost always. So that's why I don't really do them, but you absolutely could get the Simply Stitched Reagent Bag added to this group if you wanted to include that into your auctioning operations. So again, there's a one TSM operation that I have in my Discord that includes all of these groups that I just went through, and then there's 2 other options which just includes Inscription, and another that just includes Jewelcrafting, and all of those strings in Discord also include the auction operations. So now let's take a look at the auctioning operations that I use. So because I primarily sell commodities, that's like almost the only thing that I do selling of. You're going to see a lot of these groups here where it says stacks of 1, 2, 3, 50, yada yada yada, and that's actually a bulk of the TSM operations that I use for auctioning. So stacks of 1, currently I just have my pets group in there. So again, really, whatever you want to do, if you are creating your own groups and you have items, like let's say you decided to create another group under mounts that is just like mounts that you farmed out in the world, or like Swift Lovebirds, whatever. If you're just wanting to sell one of them at a time, you could add them to this group right here. Now, the only thing that you would have to kind of consider when adding them to this group is there's not a minimum price. So this operation's always just going to undercut whatever competition. Um, so you'd have to kind of consider that and potentially make a separate stack of 1 operation. Like you could click this button here, which is going to duplicate the group. So you could it's saying stack of 11 now because it's just a duplicate. It's funny. But you could create a duplicate of the stacks of 1 group and then set a minimum price. And to set the minimum price, it's pretty simple. Like, let's just say you wanted the minimum price to be 50,000 gold. You just type in 50,000 G. And there, now you have this operation set up with a minimum price of 50,000 gold. And you would just need to click this button under details to add whatever operation you're wanting to or whatever group you're wanting to that operation. So stacks of 2 is kind of the same thing. As you can see, my Zap Throttle Soul Inhaler is set up into this group. Now, one thing you'll notice with all of my TSM auctioning operations, pretty much everything, the auction duration is set to 12 hours. Some things I have set to longer, like mounts, or not maybe mounts. Like transmog would be a good thing to have, to maybe set the auction duration to 24 hours. But a lot of like commodities, gems, missives, I mean, you're not even going to have the auction live for 12 hours probably. Most of the time, you're going to be cancel scanning. So the reason I set to 12 hours is just for the lowest price of deposit cost, essentially. So again, for most things, if your gold making method similar to mine, you're going to want to put your auction duration to 12 hours. Stacks of 3. So this is kind of a bigger one that I use. So this is going to be all of my gems, missives, and contracts. So all of those items I sell in stacks of 3. They're already kind of teed up, ready to go. Posting duration is 12 hours. Post cap 3. Maximum price I set to 100,000 gold. I don't really know why. You could just leave the same string that's like default in there if you wanted. Now, if you copy my operations, it's going to copy this max price, but it doesn't matter. Stacks of 50. So stacks of 50 is going to be my primal convergence, engineering parts, all of my pigments, ruined writhe bark, elemental harmony. So all of those things are going to be in stacks of 50. And then once again, auction duration 12 hours, post cap 50. Those are like the 2 main things that you have to kind of adjust when you're setting up your auctioning operations. Stacks of 500, same story, but that's just going to be my inks. So all of my inks I sell in stacks of 500, with the exception of if I'm going to be off for a long time. So like if I'm getting off for the night, then I will just post all of my burnished ink that I have. For example, like 16,000 burnished ink up on my auction house, and if it sells in overnight, great. If it doesn't, yeah, I lost maybe 1,000 gold depositing all of that ink onto the auction house, but it's worth it. Stacks of 6 is going to be my soul cages and dragonflight bags. To be totally honest with you, I don't know how I landed on stacks of 6 for bags. It's kind of a random number, because obviously most people use like 4 bags and then 1 reagent bag. But stacks of 6 seems to work for me. But you absolutely could make any changes to this if you wanted. Like if you wanted to change your bags to 4, you could change this to 4. Again, you would just go into posting, change the post cap to 4, and then you probably want to update the name. So you click this rename right here, stacks of 4. I am not going to change that. So obviously keep it at stacks of 6. But that's kind of the idea. And then I just want to highlight this as well. So one thing I don't really do currently is cooking, gold making with cooking, but I have before. And one thing that I did do was like delicious dragon spittle was something that I crafted a lot to sell. But delicious dragon spittle was also something that I had to use on this character on a good basis or a regular basis when I was doing like PvE content, like raiding and Mythic Plus. So to be able to sell the water, but also not sell all of it because I needed some for myself, I did create this group. I don't currently have any sort of operation tied to it, but you will get this group if you install my thing, I think. But basically, I just set the post cap to infinite essentially, but I just made it so that no matter what, it always kept 200 of this item in my bags. So that would be an option if you are doing cooking, because cooking is obviously a profitable thing and something that I am going to be exploring. But if you're using cooking for gold making, you might need some of the material, or not materials, but some of the end product for your own self. So you can kind of set your operation up this way if that's the case. So here's the profession equipment auctioning operation. I would post in stacks of 5. And I believe I would, so you would have to go through and add these individual, professions or groups to this. So you would want to go through and make sure you click like profession, crafted gear and whatnot and get them added to this group. It should have, it looks like it's got all crafted. So anything that's not already in a group probably is just going to follow, or anything that's not assigned to a different operation is probably just going to follow this profession equipment posting operation. So that's kind of set up for you already if you do profession gear or any other type of gear. And then here's my rocket posting operation. So obviously I've just got the rocket assigned to it. So I did set the auction duration to 24 hours for these with a post cap of 1. And then I just set the minimum price to 70,000 gold. So I think I mentioned that it cost me like 67 to 68K to craft the rocket. So I set the minimum price to 70,000 gold. I actually maybe should take that up a little bit because after the auction house cut, I probably would break even or even lose a little bit of gold. But that's the same idea with the Panthers minimum price and the Mechano Hawk minimum price. So those are what I have set up for those different mounts. And then lastly, I think the only other main operation, at least auctioning wise, is going to be the pets and toys. So obviously I just have my pets and toys assigned to this operation. It's just a post cap of 1 12-hour duration. And I could obviously, because this operation is different than or is not different than the stacks of 1 posting operation. But the reason that I have pets and toys specifically separate, even though that the operation is realistically the same, is just so I can when I'm going through posting, this is the operation that it's processing off of, and it just helps me understand like the different types of stuff that I'm posting, so I can just see it's pets and toys and I can just know, okay, that item's a toy. So that's kind of why I have that separated, but you don't necessarily have to have it separated by any means. Looking at crafting operations, so I do have some of these professional equipment and gear operations set up. So these are kind of like the main ones is going to be the professional equipment times 2 times 4, crafted webs times 2 times 4. So essentially the way I created these groups is after posting professional equipment and crafted gear and weapons for so long, I figured out what sells, what has a higher sell rate and what doesn't, and so stuff that had a higher sell rate, I would have crafting 4 at a time as opposed to crafting 2 at a time. So these groups are already kind of set up for your crafting operations if you wanted to get that started. And then there is an operation for crafting the zap throttle if you wanted to as well. So the way that this operation works is basically I have to have um, 2 or less of the zap throttles in order for my operation to say, okay, we need to restock. If it does say, okay, we need to restock, then it's going to restock up to 10 of them. I have set a minimum profit. So the minimum profit's 300 gold. So it won't restock if the profit per craft is anywhere less than 300 gold. And that's basically the gist of it. And that's kind of the same idea with the profession equipment and crafted weapons and gear. So with the profession equipment, I'd have to have none to restock. I would restock to 2, having 2 of the item in stock. And I set the minimum profit to 75 gold per craft. And then I think the only other operations that I use on a regular basis, I actually don't use crafting operations almost ever. So they're certainly there. You can use them, but again, I don't really use these like ever. But I do use the mailing operations a lot. So the bracer shuffle, obviously, this is I explained the group earlier. It was just to mail the crafted bracers to my character that has enchanting. But then I do have this option for mounts to Mac. So I created this when I had the Swift Lovebirds just to quickly send them all over to my character with access to the guild bank. But this is kind of the main operation I use currently, and I'm going to be using mailing operations way more extensively once I have my 3rd account established. But essentially, if you do your crafting, you could add all of these different groups, like, because obviously you can't have blacksmithing, engineering, inscription, Jewelcrafting all on one character. So if you were using all of these different groups for crafting and you were using crafting operations for them, or even if you're not, you could set up a mailing operation and just add all of those groups to send the mail to one specific character if you're going to do all of your crafting or auctioning on that specific character. So you could just add, like, literally you could click like all crafted, and then when you go to your mailbox, if you have anything that needs to be sent out, you just go to groups, select all the different groups that you're wanting to mail, and then click mail selected, and it should just send everything over to everything that you've crafted that's in those groups to the character you're wanting it to be sent to. So that's essentially what my TSM is used for, how I use it. I really hope that you found this beneficial. Again, if you are wanting access to my TSM profiles, they are in my Discord. A link to my Discord is down in the description. I do also live stream on Twitch and YouTube. A link to my live stream, my Twitch live stream is down in the description. But I do giveaways on my live stream. I've only done one, which was yesterday, and I gave away 600,000 gold. Definitely plan on doing more giveaways in the future. So if you're interested in something like that, I would definitely recommend either subscribing on YouTube, following on Twitch, so you know the next time I'm live. But if you have any other questions about my TSM profiles or TSM in general, please feel free to leave a question in the comments. And also, you can join my Discord, and there's a section in there for questions, and you can ask your questions there, and I'll do my best to answer. So yeah, again, I hope you found this video helpful. I thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.